The harsh medicinal smell of disinfectant and the cold ticking of machines were my last memories before death in my past life. To help that roommate who called herself the ceiling of suffering solve her endless troubles, I pulled an all-nighter for a week, helping her with her project, even using my living expenses to cover that incomprehensible medical fee. In the end, I suddenly went into cardiac arrest on the campus road during a night of heavy rain, collapsing into the cold, muddy water. And she, only standing under the parasol, covering her face and crying, told the onlookers how remorseful and miserable she felt, once again siphoning away the last heat of my life, turning it into new ammunition to solicit sympathy. Ding, my phone vibrated violently, pulling me out of the near-death suffocation. Sunlight was slanting through the sheer curtains, and the air was filled with familiar fine dust. I lowered my head to look at my hands. The skin was tight, and there were no electric shock marks left from the resuscitation. The electronic calendar on the desk clearly showed the time, September 12th, 2:10 p.m. The second week of sophomore year had begun. "Chloe, you awake?" I washed an apple, but this peeling knife is too blunt, it cut my hand. A voice with a hint of crying came from the lower bunk. Ivy was huddled on a chair, her eyes red, holding up a finger with a nearly invisible wound, her gaze flickering with habitual clinginess and entitlement. On her desk were imported fruits I had just bought and a mess she had made of the trash. At this time in my past life, I would have jumped out of bed, fetched the medicine box to disinfect her, comfort her fragile emotions, and then naturally help her peel the rest of the fruit, even feeling too shy to mention the money for fruit. But this time, I only looked at her coldly, with no warmth in my eyes. I didn't answer her, not even giving her half a glance. I straightened, pulled off my blanket, walked to my desk in slippers, unplugged the charger, picked up my phone, and dialed a number directly. "Hello, is this Shuinjia moving?" "Yes, Haidt University, West District, Building 3, Dorm 302. I need the fastest moving service, arrive within an hour, not much to move, but a full packing and sealing. The cost is not a problem. I'll pay the rush fee." After hanging up, I opened the computer, logged into the campus network, and directly opened the form for withdrawing from the dorm and for sublease. Filling out the form, uploading the electronic version of the lease, submitting the application, the whole process took less than 3 minutes. The air in the dorm seemed to freeze in an instant. Ivy's arm, which was raised with a finger, stiffened midair, and her pitiful expression on her face briefly became hard to maintain, turning into a ridiculous stiffness. "Chloe. What are you talking about? Moving? Where are you moving to? Are you leaving me?" She habitually used this highly suggestive line, trying to pull me back into the moral shackles of being a caretaker. I turned around, looking down at her from a superior height, a cold arc curling at the corner of my mouth. I didn't explain anything, nor did I offer any comforting words. I simply, in front of her, opened my large suitcase. With a click, the metal latch sprang open, a sound that was especially jarring in the quiet dorm. I began to clear out everything that belonged to me. The clothes in the wardrobe, the skincare products on the shelf, the major books on the desk, and even the shampoo and tissues I bought last week. Anything I paid for, I was not leaving behind. Ivy finally realized something was wrong. She hurriedly stood up from the chair, ran over, tears falling as she spoke. "Chloe, did I do something wrong? Is it because I didn't wash your peeling knife after using it just now? Or because I didn't clean up yesterday? Don't do this. You're scaring me. You know I've never had it easy growing up. At this school, you're my only friend. If you leave, what am I supposed to do?" She spoke while trying to reach out and grab my sleeve. The moment before she touched me, I quickly pulled my hand away and sharply slapped hers aside. Slap! The crisp sound echoed through the room. "Don't touch me." My voice was flat, cold as a steel needle kept on ice. "And your tears won't work on me." Ivy's head turned to the side from the slap, completely stunned. She looked at me in disbelief, utterly unable to understand how her best friend, who had always been so accommodating and ready to pick up the tab for her, could suddenly become someone else. Just then, the dorm doors swung open. Two other roommates, Grace and Hannah, walked in with textbooks in hand, freezing at the doorway when they saw the tense standoff. "What's going on? Chloe, why do you have such a big suitcase?" Grace asked, confused. Ivy, as if spotting a lifeline, immediately lunged at Grace, tears streaming down her face like broken pearls. "Grace, Hannah, please talk to Chloe. She suddenly wants to move out for no reason and has been saying such strange things. Is it because I'm too stupid and always cause her trouble, so she hates me? In the past, I might have chosen to handle this privately out of concern for everyone's dignity. But now, I only found it ridiculous." I picked up a hardcover notebook from the table, flipped to a page, and held it directly in front of Grace and Hannah. "Since you're all here, you might as well witness this." I pointed at the ledger. Over the past academic year, Ivy has borrowed a total of 3,700 yuan in cash from me, used my credit card to pay for living expenses amounting to 6,500 yuan, and used my packages, skincare products, and food, which is worth at least 2,000 yuan. That's a total of 12,200 yuan. I turned to look at Ivy, who had gone pale, and continued speaking each word clearly and steadily. "I have all the transfer records and billing screenshots here, and I've already printed them out. I'm moving out today, and I'm giving you 3 days to transfer this money back to my account. If you don't, my lawyer will directly contact the school's legal department and your advisor." "Chloe! How could you do this?" Ivy shrieked, her voice sharp and panicked. Those were all given to me voluntarily. You said we were best friends, that your family was well off, so what's the harm in helping me? How can you measure our friendship with money? Voluntarily?" I let out a cold laugh. My voluntariness was based on the premise of decent character. "And you're just a greedy leech." Heavy footsteps sounded from outside the door, followed by the mover's inquiry, "Are you Ms. Chloe? We've arrived." "Yes, come in," I replied loudly. Two movers in work uniforms pushed the door open and efficiently began helping me pack and move my luggage and boxes. Ivy watched as the luxurious items that once belonged to this dorm, to me, including the air purifier and cushioned chair I had brought, were carried away one by one. Her expression shifted from faint pity to genuine fear and panic. Because she knew better than anyone that once I left, no one would pay for her meals or buy her fruit, and no one would stay up late to play the poor suffering girl act with her. "Chloe, you can't leave. What am I supposed to do if you go? And what about tomorrow's club report? I don't know how to do it." Finally tearing off her fragile mask, she rushed forward, trying to grab my suitcase. I didn't even lift an eyelid, sidestepping to avoid her as she fell to the ground. "That's your business." I snapped the clasp on my shoulder bag shut, stepped into my high heels, and walked out of dorm 302 without looking back. The moment I dragged my suitcase down the dormitory stairs, the afternoon sunlight poured over me without any obstruction, carrying away a trace of the chill that had settled deep in my bones. Behind me, Ivy's hurried, chaotic footsteps were chasing down after me. She wasn't wearing shoes, her bare feet stepping on the concrete steps, her hair slightly messy, and the corners of her eyes still carrying traces of tears. This kind of wretchedness was her most skilled weapon. In the past, whenever she put on this act, the whole floor would think I was somehow pressuring her invisibly again. "Chloe! Stop right there. Explain yourself." Ivy flung her arms wide at the exit of the dormitory lobby, blocking the path of me and the movers. It was break time, and the first-floor lobby was bustling, filled with students coming and going. Noticing the commotion, many people stopped in their tracks, murmuring as they gathered around. Seeing the crowd form, a fleeting, barely concealed glint of smugness flashed through Ivy's eyes, and her tearful voice instantly reached its peak. "Chloe, I know you look down on me for being poor, for my family falling on hard times and not having money. But how could you accuse me of stealing your money in front of so many people? Those things were things you forced on me, saying you wanted to share them with me." She clutched her chest, her body swaying as if she might faint at any second. Just for a little money, are you trying to drive me to the brink? You know, I don't even have food money for this month. Murmurs of confusion began to ripple through the crowd. Isn't that Chloe? I heard her family is pretty well off. Why is she so harsh on her roommate? Ivy seems so pitiful usually, even saving money on the cheapest dishes at the cafeteria. Could there be some misunderstanding here? Listening to these familiar voices, I felt nothing but calm inside. In my past life, I was crushed under this kind of moral high ground, and to maintain so-called kindness and face, I slowly carved off pieces of my own flesh to feed her. I stopped in my tracks, turned around, and looked at her coldly as she put on her performance. Are you done? I spoke coolly, my voice not loud, yet carrying an oppressive weight that was impossible to ignore. Ivy froze for a moment, seemingly caught off guard that I showed not even a hint of rebuttal or emotional reaction. I pulled a stack of printed papers from my shoulder bag, the purchase records and chat log screenshots I had printed in the dorm earlier. Without wasting words, I held the first page up directly to the watching crowd. 3 months ago, you said your mother was hospitalized and urgently needed money, so you took 3,000 yuan from me. But the next day, a pair of limited edition sneakers worth 2,800 appeared in your moments. After that, you set it to be visible to my group only, but unfortunately, you forgot to block my high school classmates. I flipped to the second page, each word crystal clear. Last month, you said you couldn't afford tuition and would have to drop out, crying and asking me to help cover it. After I transferred the money to you, you went ahead and signed up for a 3,000 yuan private fitness training course. Ivy's face instantly turned from pale to red, and then from red to green. Flustered, she reached out to snatch the papers from my hand. You're lying. You fabricated all this to frame me. Whether it's fabricated or not, the transfer records and bank statements will tell it all. I sidestepped her grab, slapping the stack of evidence onto the table in front of the lobby bulletin board with a loud smack. Ivy, you always like to put yourself in the position of the suffering one, using your so-called pride and victim status to demand from everyone around you. You use people's sympathy as your free ATM for pleasure. Before, I was stupid enough to let you deceive me. But starting today, I won't give you a single cent to be a stepping stone for your vanity. Before the undeniable evidence, the tide of public opinion among the onlookers did a complete 180-degree turn. Oh my God, using someone's life-saving money to buy limited edition sneakers? This is absolutely outrageous. And here I was feeling sorry for her, turns out it was all an act. Spending other people's money on fitness classes, playing the victim card so cleverly. The harsh whispers hit Ivy's face like a series of heavy, resounding slaps. She stood frozen, fists clenched, lips trembling, that face so accustomed to playing the weakling finally cracked into something truly sinister. Also, I stepped forward, closing in on her, lowering my voice to a volume only the two of us could hear, that cardboard box of designer bags hidden under your bed, and the receipts from your burner account selling my second-hand clothes on the forum. Do you want me to read them out loud in front of everyone right now? Ivy's pupils contracted violently. It was as if her spine had been ripped out. She stumbled back 2 steps, and for the first time, genuine, unmistakable panic surfaced in her eyes. She had no idea how I knew these things, because these were the filthy secrets I'd only discovered by accident in my past life, after she'd completely destroyed me. I straightened my collar, didn't spare her another glance, turned to the movers with a faint smile, and said, "Let's go." Under the shocked and contemptuous gazes of the crowd, I strode out of the dormitory building with steady, resolute steps. Renting the off-campus apartment went unusually smoothly. It was a high-rise unit just 2 blocks from the school, with tight security and excellent natural light. When the movers finally placed the last box and left, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the campus from above. The stale, damp smell of the dormitory was gone, as was Ivy's endless sobbing and complaints. I sat on the sofa, pulled out my phone from my bag, and began the first round of settlements with practiced ease. First, the bank card. In a previous life, to conveniently assist Ivy in an emergency, I had arranged an auxiliary card for her with a limit of 5,000 yuan. She nearly always hit the limit each month, and whenever questioned, she would make up excuses like paying association fees or buying medicine for the family. I opened the mobile banking app without hesitation and tapped on Report Loss and Cancel. Next came various shared accounts. Premium memberships on video sites, main account for ordering meals, even the academic database I pay for subscriptions to. Over the years, Ivy had been comfortably free to use these. I logged into each platform, removed all linked devices with one click, and changed all passwords. After taking care of all that, I opened the campus office system and sent the completed student off-campus housing application, along with the lease and security agreement, to the counselor's email. I also attached a formal legal notice, clearly stating that Ivy's long-standing financial disputes and personal integrity issues had seriously affected my normal life and personal safety, and requested the school to file a record. Only half an hour later, my phone lit up with a call from Ivy. I looked at the flashing name on the screen, a cold smile creeping to my lips, pressed to answer, and started recording. "Chloe! What on earth do you mean?" Ivy screamed into the phone, no longer the high-pitched victim she used to be. "Why is my card frozen? I just treated the association officers to a meal at the restaurant, and the card won't go through at checkout. Do you know how embarrassed I was in front of them?" "Your card?" I replied coolly, even with a hint of a smile. "That's my credit card supplementary card, Ivy. It seems you forgot that every penny on that card is mine. You promised to give me that card for emergencies. Now the association people are all watching me. Unlock the card immediately. And why can't I log into my video account? What gives you the right to change the password?" Her voice trembled with a ridiculous, self-righteous panic. "Emergency?" I laughed softly. "Using my card to entertain others to build your connections, this is emergency? Ivy, from today onward, my things, not a single speck of dust will you touch." "Chloe, you can't treat me this way." Ivy seemed to realize that being tough was useless, and her tone instantly shifted back to that nauseating victimhood and distress. "We're the best of friends. You're moving out now, leaving me alone in the dorm, everyone pointing fingers at me. Now you've even sealed the card. Are you trying to ruin me? I won't even have breakfast money tomorrow." "That's your problem, not mine," I cut her off coldly. "Also, a reminder, the $12,000 debt from before, the 3-day deadline has started counting down. If I don't receive repayment by then, a judicial notice will be sent directly to your home and to your counselor's office." Before she could deliver another round of suffering moral coercion, I hung up and blocked her number. Almost simultaneously, the counselor's call came through. "Chloe, I've received your off-campus housing application and those materials." The advisor's voice sounded heavy. "Is there some misunderstanding between you and Ivy? She came to my office just now, crying very hard, saying you suddenly moved out and threatened to sue you." "Teacher, there are detailed bills and evidence in the materials," I reported calmly and clearly. "Everything I did complies with the law and school regulations. If Ivy thinks I have falsely accused her, she is welcome to take legal action against me at any time. As for my off-campus accommodation, I have completed all the required procedures, and I will bear all consequences myself." The advisor was silent on the phone for a moment. Faced with such a logical, flawless, and resolute report, he could only sigh in the end. "All right, I'll approve your paperwork. But I hope you can handle your relationship with your classmates calmly." I hung up the phone, walked to the fridge, took out a cold drink, and took a sip. Cutting off my financial support was like pulling the oxygen tube from a parasite. Without my funding, Ivy's hypocritical relationships, built on borrowing others' generosity, and her carefully crafted image of a strong suffering girl, would collapse from within soon enough. On Wednesday afternoon, the school's club federation held the semi-annual election for the person in charge of the large-scale event in the lecture hall. In my past life, to help Ivy build her resume, I not only wrote a complete proposal for her overnight but also gave up the presentation opportunity on the spot, willingly stepping back to be a subordinate running errands. In the end, the event was a huge success, and all the glory and praise fell on Ivy, while I collapsed backstage from overwork and didn't even have my name on the recognition list. Today, I wore a sharp dark blue suit skirt, carried a well-prepared PPT file, and walked gracefully into the lecture hall. As soon as I entered, I felt several complex gazes. Ivy, sitting in the front row in a slightly worn-out white dress, had red eyes and was whispering to a few club officers nearby. The officers occasionally shot me disapproving and condemning glances. "Chloe, how dare you show up?" Mark, the head of the Club Federation's External Relations Department, and Ivy's latest target of flattery, suddenly stood up, blocking my way. His voice was loud. Ivy stayed up several nights working on the proposal for the charity welcome party. Why did you suddenly withdraw the budget allocation and sponsorship connection you promised her? Don't you know your personal grudges are affecting the whole club's progress? The surrounding club members turned their heads to watch the drama. Ivy, at just the right moment, tugged at Mark's sleeve and said, with a tearful voice, "Senior Mark, don't say that. It's all my fault. I wasn't capable enough, and I made Chloe angry. It makes sense for her to move out. I shouldn't have relied on her." This tactic of using public matters as an excuse to roast me over the fire of morality, I had endured it countless times in my past life. I stopped, let out a cold laugh, and directly connected my iPad to the projector in the front of the lecture hall. "Senior Mark, when you speak, you need evidence." My slender fingers tapped lightly on the screen, and the big screen instantly displayed the club's financial details and material list from the previous quarter. First, I turned around to face the nearly 100 club officers in the room, speaking loudly and clearly. All club sponsorship funds must go through a dual review by the finance department and me. In the sponsorship application Ivy submitted last week, there was a venue decoration fee of 5,000 yuan. However, the recipient was a personal WeChat account that couldn't provide any official invoice. The entire room erupted in murmurs. Ivy's face instantly turned deathly pale, and she stood up hurriedly. That is the deposit paid to the florist. Is that so?" I sneered, pulling up the next screenshot. But according to the results I verified with the flower shop, they never received this deposit at all. On the contrary, this money was transferred into your personal electronic wallet in the afternoon of the same day. You slander." Ivy trembled all over, her voice changing tone. Second, I did not give her a chance to breathe, directly opening the next page, regarding the planning for this charity gala. The proposal Ivy submitted copied the core idea, program flow, and sponsor return terms from the retention archives of the previous years, with a similarity rate as high as 85%. Such a proposal with no originality, even suspected of plagiarism, as the head of the External Relations Department, what right do I have to approve the budget? On the big screen, the similarity reports for the two proposals were clearly displayed, the red overlap marks shocking to behold. Mark's face instantly turned extremely grim. He turned to glare at Ivy, his lips moved but he couldn't utter a complete sentence. Finally, I walked straight to the podium and plugged my encrypted USB drive into the computer. Today I am here to run for the overall head of the charity gala. This is the independent proposal I wrote, the Digital Campus Charity Innovation Summit. As I pressed the page turn button, a business plan with tight logic, perfectly integrating corporate sponsorship with public interest value, and even secured formal intent letters from well-known external companies, unfolded before everyone's eyes. Compared to Ivy's flawed, embezzling, and plagiarized old proposal, my plan was clearly superior. The club president and supervising teachers nodded repeatedly, their eyes filled with admiration and astonishment. Amidst the audience's enthusiastic applause, the president announced on the spot, "Chloe will be the overall head of this charity gala and summit." As for Ivy, suspected of misusing club funds and academic misconduct, she is hereby suspended from all club duties pending internal investigation. Ivy slumped into her chair as if struck by lightning, her face ashen. Her meticulously designed victim trap not only failed to bring me down, but became a hammer that crushed her hypocritical character in public. I gathered my materials and walked off the podium. As I passed Ivy, I leaned slightly, close to her ear, and spoke in a barely audible voice, "Take my things to Lip Generous. Does that feel good? This is only the opening act. Ivy, enjoy the fruit of your own evil deeds." Immersive translate. The shadow of the community investigation had yet to dissipate when Ivy came up with another scheme. On Friday afternoon, I was walking to the library when I suddenly received a call from Kevin, the manager of the Blue Bay Cafe near campus. This cafe was a popular hangout for students, and in my past life, Ivy worked there part-time, using the self-reliant and hardworking student persona to garner sympathy. As for me, I was often forced to run errands for her, and even had to use my savings to pay off a 20,000 yuan compensation after she damaged the cafe's imported coffee machine. "Chloe," Kevin's voice came through the phone, dripping with condescension. "Ivy fainted from crying in the cafe today. She said you've been bullying her lately, even trying to ruin her part-time job here. You're all classmates, how can you be so vicious? She was scheduled for an urgent night shift tonight, but now she's unwell. As her friend, you should cover her shift tonight and settle the losses from her absences this week." Hearing this familiar tone of moral blackmail, I let out a cold laugh. In my past life, Kevin had an unclear relationship with Ivy, using his authority as manager to give her various advantages while she covered for him and even helped him with shady dealings. Cover her shift? Settle her losses? I stopped walking, my tone calm and unruffled. "Manager Kevin, Ivy, and I have no legal joint liability. If she's sick, she should see a doctor. If she owes money to the cafe, she should pay it herself. Why should I be the one to foot her bill? Why? Because she's your roommate. She's in this state because of you," Kevin shouted over the phone. "Let me tell you, if you don't come in to cover her night shift and pay the 3,000 yuan for the high-end coffee beans she ruined, I'll post on the campus forum, exposing how you've been tormenting your poor roommate and being utterly cold-hearted." Threats and coercion, he certainly knew how to play that game. But unfortunately, I was no longer the easy pushover I used to be. "Fine," I said, my eyes narrowing slightly as a cold smirk tugged at my lips. "I'll be there at 8 p.m. sharp to settle it." After hanging up, I didn't head straight to the cafe. Instead, I went to the university's legal aid center, where I asked a senior law student I knew to pull up a business compliance document. Then, I anonymously contacted the City Market Supervision Bureau and a tax reporting hotline. In my past life, when I was cleaning up Ivy's messes, I had accidentally discovered major discrepancies in the Blue Bay Cafe's purchasing records and accounts. Kevin had long been privately sourcing cheap, expired coffee beans to replace the cafe's imported ones, and had colluded with Ivy to attribute the loss of the low-quality beans to employee breakage or operational errors in order to scam the headquarters out of compensation funds, which they split privately. At exactly 8 p.m., I stepped into the Blue Bay Cafe. The place was packed. Ivy, dressed in her work uniform, sat pale-faced by the window, surrounded by a few sympathetic customers. Kevin stood behind the counter with his hands clasped behind his back, exuding an air of smug confidence. Seeing me walk in, Kevin sneered and slapped the counter. "Good, you know what's best for you. Go change into your uniform and take over the shift. Pay the 3,000 yuan loss fee first, and scan the QR code." Ivy also looked up, a flicker of pride and resentment flashing in her eyes as she spoke in a syrupy voice. "Chloe, thank you for coming to save me. Even though you've been so harsh to me before, I know you're still kind at heart." "Kind?" I walked slowly to the counter, and under everyone's gaze, instead of pulling out my phone to pay, I took a thick stack of documents from my bag and slammed them hard onto the counter. Slap! The sharp sound immediately drew the attention of everyone in the cafe. "Manager Kevin, before we discuss these 3,000, let us first account for a few other matters." My voice was clear and decisive. Kevin frowned. "What do you mean? Don't pretend to be mysterious here." I casually pressed the phone's audio play button, connecting it to the Bluetooth speaker still linked in the shop. Immediately, a remarkably clear dialogue recording echoed throughout the entire cafe. Brother Kevin, is it really okay with this batch of expired espresso beans? What if customers notice? What's there to worry about? If something goes wrong, we'll just say Chloe or another part-timer mishandled it, write it off as losses, and headquarters won't be able to trace it. Then the reimbursement money will be split 3-7 between us. This was exactly the conversation I had accidentally recorded in my past life and had long kept in the cloud backup. As soon as the audio played, the room erupted in an uproar. Customers sipping coffee showed disgusted expressions, spit out their drinks, and swarmed closer in anger. Kevin's face paled as white as paper, with cold sweat trickling down his forehead. You're fabricating this. You're illegally recording. Whether it's fabricating or not, you'll know when inspectors from the Market Supervision Bureau and Tax Bureau arrive. I glanced at my watch, smiling coolly. 3 minutes ago, I already submitted to the industry and commerce regulators in your brand's headquarters legal department the Blue Bay Cafe's nearly half-year's accounts sheet with both the official and unofficial contracts, expired raw material purchase orders, and your and Ivy's private transfer records. Before the words finished, police whistles and the footsteps of market regulation personnel could be heard from the cafe entrance. 2 uniformed regulators walked straight in. Who is responsible here, Kevin? We received a real-name tip-off that you're suspected of food safety violations and accounting fraud. Please cooperate with the investigation. Kevin nearly collapsed to the floor. And Ivy, who had been trying to maintain her innocent White Lotus act, turned pale with fear and tried to slip out the back door. Ivy, don't rush to leave. I stepped sideways to block her path, my gaze as cold as a blade. As an accomplice and the person directly handling the false losses, your name will be in the investigators' transcripts. Seeing the regulators advance to take Kevin and Ivy away for questioning, the surrounding students and customers clapped and cheered, and someone even pulled out a phone to record this dramatic scene. Ivy, being led away, turned her head and locked eyes with me, full of despair and resentment. I stood under the lights, elegance in motion as I adjusted my sleeves. The thorough investigation into Ivy's part-time scandal has ruined her reputation completely. She has not only lost all part-time income but also left a significant stain on her record. However, for someone who is used to sucking dry, the real predicament lies ahead. In mid-October, the Academy held the annual evaluation meeting for the Comprehensive Scholarship and the Poverty Alleviation Grant in the lecture hall. This government scholarship and the top-tier grant, totaling up to 20,000 yuan, is Ivy's last hope to turn things around. In the previous life, she relied on meticulously feigned extreme family hardship to prove her case, plus my silent consent and concession at the evaluation meeting, to secure this large sum. She then turned around and bought the latest Apple 3P set, while the truly needy impoverished students could only watch sadly as they were eliminated. Today, I sit in the second row of the evaluation seats, holding my own academic achievements and social practice materials, coldly watching everything on stage. It's Ivy's turn to speak. Today she deliberately wears a washed-out old outfit, no makeup on her face, her eye sockets slightly reddened, and she speaks with a telltale choking in her voice. Dear teachers and students, hello. I am Ivy. You might have heard about my family situation. My parents are divorced, my father is gravely ill and bedridden, and the family relies on my mother doing odd jobs to make ends meet. For the past year, I have only eaten 1 meal a day, working hard to make ends meet just to be able to continue my studies. She cries on stage like a weeping beauty, recounting her tragic experience, and many younger students who do not fully understand the situation even show sympathetic looks from the crowd. Therefore, I really need this top-tier grant and scholarship to sustain my life for the second half of the year and my father's medical expenses. Ivy takes a deep breath and bows deeply to the review panel. Very touching indeed. A clear and piercing voice cuts through the somber mood of the room. I slowly stand up, in the shocked gazes of everyone, and stride to the podium. I do not look at Ivy at all, but directly plug the USB drive into the shared computer and face the Deputy Secretary of the College Party Committee and the professors on the review panel. Dear professors, as Ivy's former roommate, I believe I have the responsibility to submit supplemental material about her real financial situation to the committee to ensure that scholarships and grants are fairly and justly awarded to those who truly need them. Ivy's face instantly pales. She rushes forward to pull out the USB drive. Chloe. What are you doing? This is my evaluation meeting, how dare you ruin it? Security, please maintain order at the scene, the deputy secretary of the review panel frowns and says in a stern tone. Two student officers who keep order immediately step forward and drag the emotionally agitated Ivy to the side. As the screen switch reveals, a series of clear images and data are displayed before the entire college's faculty and students. First, about Ivy's so-called extreme family hardship. I hold a laser pointer and point to the information on the screen. This is the home property information of Ivy's hometown that I checked through proper channels. There is a residential property valued at around 1 million yuan under her name, and her father bought a family car worth about 150,000 yuan just last month. The poverty proof she submitted appears to be issued by an organization that may be in violation, and I have already sent a letter to the local disciplinary inspection department to verify. The hall erupts in an uproar, and the professors whisper to each other, their faces turning very serious. Second, about Ivy's so-called eating only one meal a day, living extremely frugally. I press the page turn button, and dozens of high-definition screenshots from social platforms and spending records appear on the screen. These are posts Ivy published on major social platforms using secondary accounts. In the past 6 months, she bought 3 luxury bags, frequented upscale venues dozens of times, and even last week went to an aerial view dining restaurant to enjoy a 1,500 yuan double dinner. I turned my head and looked at Ivy, who was trembling like chaff, coldly, and the sources of these funds, besides the money you previously took from me, also include illegal gains you made by forging documents to embezzle public funds. You tailed me. You invaded my privacy. Ivy screamed, tears mingling with her meticulously crafted disguise, going hysterically. All of this is content you publicly posted on social platforms. What privacy are you talking about? My voice was icy, dropping a thunderbolt without mercy, finally, regarding the evaluation of academic scholarships. The extra credit paper Ivy submitted, a marketing model based on community public welfare, upon verification, its core data was completely fabricated, and more than 60% of the text directly plagiarized an internal report not publicly released by third-party institutions. The comparison image between the plagiarism report and the original report hung prominently on the big screen, ironclad and irrefutable. Absurd. This is extremely disgraceful. The deputy secretary slammed the table with a thud, stood up in anger. Cancel Ivy's eligibility for all scholarships and grants. Cancel all her awards for this year. The college discipline inspection team should immediately launch a comprehensive investigation into Ivy's suspected falsification of materials and academic misconduct. Teacher. It's not like that. It was Chloe who framed me. She's jealous of me. Ivy collapsed to the ground, clinging to the podium and crying loudly, but this time no one was willing to lend her a hand. The students who passed by her eyes were filled with disgust and contempt. I looked down from above at Ivy, who lay prostrate on the stage, and in my heart there was nothing but endless coldness. The scholarship scandal made Ivy the campus pariah, but she didn't stop there. Driven by immense survival pressure and resentment, she set her sights on the upcoming National College Student Innovation and Entrepreneurship Competition. The grand prize not only offered a startup fund of up to 500,000 yuan but also guaranteed direct admission to graduate school and job offers from top-tier companies. In my past life, I poured all my effort into conceiving and writing the Project Green logistics system based on intelligent supply chain, only for Ivy and her ex-boyfriend Ethan from the outreach department to secretly plagiarize it on the eve of the finals. They submitted it for campus approval first, then turned around and accused me of plagiarism. Back then, I was soft-hearted and inexperienced, and I watched helplessly as they took the stage to collect the award with my work, while I was labeled a plagiarist and suffered from depression for half a semester. This time, I anticipated she would repeat her old tricks. I deliberately left a draft paper titled Core Algorithm and Commercial Implementation Path on a table in the public study room, then got up to buy coffee. Through the surveillance camera, I saw Ivy sneakily photograph the draft as if it were a treasure and quickly slip out of the study room. What she didn't know was that the core logic code in that draft had been embedded with a fatal computational flaw. Once the data volume exceeded a set threshold, the entire system would instantly crash and fall into an infinite loop. At the same time, as soon as I finished writing the plan, I used the National Intellectual Property Blockchain Evidence Platform to encrypt and lock the entire project, code, PPT, business model document, and timestamps, in an immutable way. 2 weeks later, at the finals of the school-level competition, Ivy and Ethan stood on stage in polished formal wear, radiant with confidence. Without any income, they had borrowed money from who knows where to rent these expensive outfits, hoping to turn their fortunes around with this project. Esteemed judges, this is the new intelligent green logistics system independently developed by our team. Ethan spoke confidently on stage, while Ivy displayed the PPT with a triumphant smile. The judges below nodded frequently, showing great interest in the innovative points proposed. Just as Ethan was about to demonstrate the final step of the back-end data simulation test, I stood up and calmly walked from the back row to the podium. Judges, I have an urgent matter to address, I said, raising the laser pointer in my hand. The project being demonstrated by this team severely infringes on my original intellectual property, and the algorithm they're showing has a major security flaw. Ethan's face changed, and he glared at me angrily. Chloe, don't you dare slander us here. We stayed up for a month writing this system. Do you have any evidence it's yours? Ivy also played the victim, red-eyed, saying, Chloe, I know you have a grudge against me, but this is the fruit of our team's hard work. You can't frame us here out of personal spite. Oh, really? I sneered. If it's your own development, then explain this, Ethan. The multi-dimensional recursive function you used in the third page's logical architecture, why does it cause an infinite loop when data concurrency reaches 1,000 times? Ethan froze, stammering, It's just a minor data fluctuation. It can be fixed with a little optimization. No need to optimize, I said, walking straight to the front computer and typing a test code. I'll set the concurrency to 1001 times now, let's see what happens. Wait, before Ethan could stop me, the system demo screen on the big screen went black, then densely packed error codes in red popped up, and the entire demo system completely froze and crashed. The judges seated beneath the podium instantly frowned. This is not just a code vulnerability issue. I produced a notarized document and projected it directly onto the big screen. A month ago, the project's complete business plan, core code, and architectural logic had already been permanently archived at the National Blockchain Copyright Protection Center, with clear hash values and timestamps. And Ivy's draft that she had referenced was a deliberately misleading version I had left behind. On the screen, the blockchain notarization time clearly showed a month ago, while Ivy and Ethan's project initiation times were 2 weeks ago. Ironclad evidence, a crushing blow from a higher dimension. The chairman of the judging panel stood up in astonishment, furious. This is simply outrageously ridiculous. In a national competition, openly stealing others' work and even trying to confuse the public. Teacher, we were wrong. It was Ivy who gave me the plan. She said she wrote it herself. Ethan completely panicked, immediately betrayed, pointing at Ivy and shouting, it was all her instruction. I know nothing. Ethan, you. Ivy stared at the formerly sweet and loyal boyfriend in disbelief, shaking with anger. You too, cancel your participation. The punishment will be recorded in your personal files and communicated to the entire school. The judge chair slapped the table, bringing this farce to an end. Ivy slumped on the stage, looking at the pirated plan in her hands, the last spark of hope in her eyes finally extinguished. And Ethan angrily slammed the documents in her face and swept away in a huff. I put away the notarized document, gracefully walked up to the defense podium, and donned my truly mature, flawless ultimate version of the plan. To the astonishment and applause of all the judges, I won first place in the final. Having repeatedly failed in clubs, part-time jobs, scholarships, and startup competitions, Ivy has fallen into total desperation. Losing all material support and connections, she decides to bet everything on one last move, to use campus online opinion to drag me down with her. At 11 o'clock at night, a post on the campus bulletin boards and anonymous forums titled "Ripping Off the Hypocrisy of a Wealthy Girl," the maligned, desperate girl's tearful confession instantly shoots to the hot list's top. The post includes a few blurred photos, Ivy in faded old clothes pulling a suitcase alone in the rain, and her sad figure sitting in the dormitory corridor, head bowed, wiping tears. The post's prose is intensely emotional and misleading, painting her as an innocent struggle student who has been chronically mentally bullied and economically exploited by her wealthy roommate Chloe. The article claims I used family influence to suppress her with the teachers at the school, and even used improper means at part-time jobs and in competitions to drive her to desperation, nearly causing her to take her own life. For a time, the righteous passers-by on the forum were set alight. So disgusting. Taking advantage of your wealth to bully a poor student like this? Should someone like this even win a first prize in the innovation contest? The school should seriously deal with her and cancel her student status. Support Ivy. The weak should not be trampled like this. The next morning, when I walked into the teaching building, the crowding eyes and snide remarks around me surged like a tidal wave. Facing the overwhelming online violence, I didn't even frown. I wasn't eager to clash with those water army members and keyboard warriors online. Instead, I went straight to the school's information center and the president's inbox reception room. In my hand was a pre-prepared electronic chain of evidence. At noon, the peak of students scrolling their phones, I used my personally verified account to post on the campus forum and the official Weibo a post with an extremely plain yet devastating headline, a full, high-definition clarification of the falsely accusations of being bullied. The post contained no lengthy emotional rhetoric, only a clean, decisive 3 hits of evidence. First hit, unedited original audio and high-definition surveillance. I directly released the complete high-definition videos and lossless audio from the dormitory hallway, the cafe scene, and the scholarship evaluation meeting. In the recordings, Ivy brazenly demanded that I act as a cash machine, forcing me to bear the costs of her unauthorized misappropriation, all laid bare. The videos also clearly show how she attempted to seize my belongings and, after her lies were exposed, how she became furious. Second hit, financial transactions and judicial complaint. I exposed a debt detail list of over 12,000 yuan stamped and certified by a CPA firm, bank transfer records, and a court receipt showing the case where I officially sued Ivy for illegal possession of personal property and defamation. Third hit. IP address tracking of posts from forum alt accounts. I attached a technical appraisal report assisted by a senior student in cybersecurity, directly proving that the anonymous hot posts stirring up trouble and fabricating evidence originated from the IP address of the cheap off-campus internet cafe Ivy currently uses. With these 3 heavy blows, the forum's public opinion turned unprecedentedly within less than 10 minutes. What the hell? This reversal is ridiculous. The original post was all fragments taken out of context and smear. Using someone else's money to buy luxury goods, and after being exposed, you turn around and say you were bullied? This suffering persona is making me sick. The court summons are out. Real name support for Chloe to defend rights with legal weapons. Liars, get out of the school. The keyboard warriors who were just condemning me a moment ago all turned, and the overwhelming flames and insults suddenly rebounded onto Ivy. Moreover, because the post's fermentation attracted extreme attention from the authorities, the party committee office and the security office promptly intervened. Upon investigation, Ivy was found to have maliciously fabricated rumors, defamed others, and seriously disrupted campus order. The university directly published a notice of criticism on its official website and handed over the leads of her alleged illegal defamation to the judicial authorities. When I met Ivy again at the entrance of the teaching building, she was being escorted by 2 security office staff for investigation. In November, the world-renowned consulting firm Dingxing Consulting opened the annual autumn internship direct entrance spot at Heidelberg University. This single spot for the entire university offers not only a high salary but also a golden stepping stone to a top-tier company's annual salary of 1 million. In my past life, I progressed to the final interview with solid skills, but at the last moment Ivy won the spot by fabricating a family hardship and inspiring story. She moved the interviewer with sympathy, and after joining the company, due to inadequate ability she crashed a major client project and even shifted all the blame onto me, who was merely an assistant, causing me to be blacklisted in the industry. This life, I wore a well-cut black suit and carried an impeccable project resume, walking gracefully into the final interview waiting area of Dingxing Consulting. Unexpected but unsurprising, Ivy surprisingly appeared in the waiting area as well. She wore heavy makeup, trying to mask the weariness and exhaustion left by recent times. Relying on a so-called HR connection from another school she privately arranged, she forcibly forged an exceptionally glossy internship resume and merged into the 10-person final interview list. Seeing me walk in, a trace of venom and panic flashed in Ivy's eyes, but she quickly maintained a proud pose and sneered loudly enough for those around to hear. Some people think that a little money can let them do whatever they want. Top foreign enterprises value comprehensive ability and character, not something some presumptuous rich girl can dominate. I didn't even bother to glance at her. I sat down in the rest area, quietly awaiting the moment to turn the situation around. The interview officially began with a facilitator-led group discussion combined with on-site case analysis. The interviewer was Daniel, a senior partner for Greater China at Dingxing Consulting. He distributed a complex case on financial risk assessment in multinational mergers and acquisitions by a large enterprise, granting 20 minutes of preparation time to each participant. In the free discussion segment, Ivy was eager to show off and grabbed the first speaker slot. She held the forged resume, pontificating with a lot of hollow buzzwords, attempting to attract Daniel's attention with emotive language and a self-introduction of growing up in adversity and knowing how to build a company's strong social image. As the team leader, I think we should approach from corporate social responsibility and empathy. However, Daniel's brow furrowed more and more. After she rambled for 3 minutes, I cleared my throat, raised my hand gracefully, and interrupted her. Ivy, what Dingxing wants is precise financial modeling and risk control, not moral rhetoric. My voice was calm, my eyes sharp. The third point you mentioned about the asset restructuring plan directly ignores the hidden liabilities of the target company. According to your logic, the company would face at least tens of millions of dollars in bad debt risk. I quickly stood up, walked to the electronic whiteboard, picked up a marker, and within 5 minutes drew a highly rigorous and logically sound financial risk hedging model. This is a valuation model rebuilt from the existing balance sheet. I turned to face Daniel and all the interviewers, explaining each variable and the deduction logic in a clear and organized manner. Daniel's eyes instantly brightened. The previously cold face wore a highly appreciative smile and nodded frequently while taking notes. Ivy's face turned pale in patches, sweat forming on her forehead. She hurriedly tried to salvage the situation, pointing at the whiteboard and exclaiming, "That's impossible. This model must have been looked at in advance." Daniel, she often uses improper means to infringe others' academic work at school. Her integrity is in question. Before you smear someone, take a look at this. I had come prepared, pulling a letter from my briefcase and handing it directly to Daniel. Mr. Daniel, this is a verification report regarding the authenticity of Ivy's resume. My voice was clear and resolute, stunning the entire room. Ivy claimed in her resume to have served as a core analyst at Ocean Capital, but to my knowledge, Ocean Capital was under investigation for suspected violations as early as half a year ago, and its HR department has explicitly issued a certificate stating that Ivy never held any position at the company. The seal on her recommendation letter is forged. Not only that, but I also attached a copy of the disciplinary decision issued officially by Hyde University. Daniel's face turned grim in an instant. In a top-tier foreign enterprise, resume fraud is a destructive act that crosses an absolute bottom line. Miss Ivy, Daniel slammed the documents heavily onto the table, his voice icy. Dingxing Consulting will permanently place you on our recruitment blacklist and will report your fraudulent conduct to the Industry HR Alliance. Now, I ask you to leave our interview site immediately. No! Mr. Daniel. Let me explain. Someone is framing me. Ivy shouted in despair, but two burly security guards had already stepped forward and, without mercy, dragged her out of the upscale office building like trash. Her hysterical screams and cries echoed down the hallway. As for me, standing before the spotlight and glass curtain wall, I accepted Daniel's approving handshake and the applause of the entire room, officially taking the direct offer from Dingxing Consulting that belonged to me. The direct offer from the top consulting firm became the final straw that broke Ivy. The industry blacklist made her unwelcome in both major companies and part-time markets, and the school's disciplinary action and notoriety left her completely isolated. Without my financial support and any source of income, the multiple online loans she had taken from high-interest platforms to maintain her facade of vanity and tough suffering finally collapsed entirely. The snowballing debt, compounded with interest, grew into an astronomical figure she could never bear. In the dead of night in late November, under a moonless and windy sky, I had just finished a seminar at my off-campus apartment and was about to rest when sudden, frantic, and violent knocking and kicking came from outside the door. "Chloe! Get out here! I know you're in there!" Ivy's hysterical, hoarse voice came through the security door. I walked to the monitor and coldly watched the scene outside. Ivy's face was dirty, her hair a mess, her clothes tattered, and her eyes gleamed with a near-crazed malice. Behind her stood two burly, tattooed loan sharks. "Chloe, you've ruined me. You made me like this, are you happy now?" Ivy pounded on the door, her voice full of venom and despair. "I owe $300,000 now. The loan sharks go to my parents' hometown every day to pressure them. It's all your fault. If you hadn't cut off my card, if you hadn't reported me, if you hadn't stepped on me in the interview, how would I have ended up like this?" Her utterly shameless logic was on full display. In her mind, all her misfortunes were caused by others' cruelty, while her greed and hypocrisy became innocent sacrifices. "Chloe! You have to give me $300,000 today." Ivy slammed against the door, shouting to the loan sharks behind her. "Brothers! The girl inside is super rich. Her family's loaded. If we catch her today, forget $300,000, her family would pay $3 million. The two thugs exchanged glances, greed flashing in their eyes, then pulled out iron bars and tried to break the door lock. Faced with this sudden danger, my heartbeat didn't even quicken. From the first day I rented this high-rise apartment, I had foreseen this battle of desperation. Ignoring the noise outside, I elegantly walked back to the living room, pressed the whole house security alarm on the wall, and simultaneously dialed the local police station and the property security command center. "Hello, Hyde Apartment 1602. 3 individuals with criminal affiliations are armed and forcibly breaking the security door, attempting kidnapping and extortion. Indoor surveillance is being recorded to the cloud and synced with the public security network." I spoke calmly and clearly, without a hint of panic. After that, I casually picked up a high-voltage stun baton from the side of the hallway and stood coldly inside the door. Bang! The lock-ton of the security door finally snapped under the heavy blows, and the door was kicked open. Ivy charged in first, full of murderous intent. "Chloe! I'll fight you to the death." The moment she crossed the threshold, I didn't hesitate. My stun baton struck precisely, hitting her in the side. Zzz. Blue-purple sparks flashed, and a powerful current surged through Ivy's body. She couldn't even scream. She convulsed and collapsed to the ground, foaming at the mouth, her crazed eyes replaced by intense pain and fear. The two thugs behind her, enraged, raised their iron bars to rush in, but suddenly, the corridor outside erupted with rapid footsteps and stern shouts. "Don't move! Police!" A dozen well-trained SWAT officers and the 6 security guards who rushed upstairs surged forward, pinning the two thugs to the ground and disarming them in an instant. The whole incident was quelled in under 3 minutes. Red and blue police lights streamed through the windows, illuminating Ivy, who was curled up on the floor and handcuffed. She trembled as she lifted her head, looking at me, who was unscathed and looming over her. In her eyes finally poured out a despair and fear from the depths of her soul. "Chloe! Please! for the sake of us being roommates before. Save me. She crawled to my feet like a mangy dog, giving one last plea. I tucked away the taser, stepped back, and looked down at her with a condescending, icy cold gaze. This is what you brought on yourself, Ivy. Go reflect properly in prison. In December, Hyde University welcomed its first snowfall of early winter. The biting cold wind swept away all the gloom and chaos that had lingered across the campus for months. The final verdicts from the judicial authorities and the university were made public on the same morning in the form of official redhead documents. The rulings regarding Ivy's multiple charges, including malicious defamation, embezzlement of personal property, academic fraud, colluding with illegal lenders to cause a disturbance at a residence, and attempted kidnapping, were formally issued. Combined with multiple offenses, she was sentenced to 3 years and 6 months in prison and held fully liable for all economic compensation. At the same time, the university's official website released a notice of the highest-level disciplinary action. Ivy was expelled from Hyde University, with her eligibility for any academic degrees or certifications permanently revoked. The parasite who had once deceived and fed on others under the guise of a victim persona had fallen irredeemably into an abyss of no return. Her name became a permanent stain of disgrace in Hyde University's history. I, on the other hand, stood at a different pinnacle of brilliance. The graduation ceremony and the university-level Outstanding Graduate Commendation Conference were held grandly in the auditorium. The hall was brightly lit and packed with seats. Deans, professors from various colleges, and representatives from top global companies were all in attendance. Dressed in a neat graduation gown, wearing the highest honor medal on my chest, I ascended the steps amid the thunderous and prolonged applause of thousands of teachers and students, slowly making my way to the podium at the center of the auditorium. Standing before the microphone, I looked down at the respectful and envious gazes filling the hall. Here, there was no yielding or weakness from my past life, no endless concessions or suffocating exploitation. With decisiveness, clarity, and swift action, I not only shattered the chains that had been placed on me but also, relying on absolute strength, carved out a broad and smooth path for myself as the protagonist of my own story. True strength has never been about tolerating hypocrisy or malice, but about having the courage to completely sever the rotten past that drags you into the mud, my voice said, calm yet powerful, echoing through the grand hall. We don't need to pay for others' suffering, nor should we yield to their greed. Each person is the sole master of their own life. As my words ended, the entire audience stood up, and thunderous applause lasted long. After the ceremony, I walked out of the auditorium. Sunlight pierced through thin clouds, casting a golden glow over the snow-covered campus avenue. A top-tier black business car was already waiting at the school gate, and the dedicated driver from Dingxing Consulting respectfully opened the door for me. I lifted my head, faced the dazzling yet warm sunshine, and with unwavering confidence, strode forward toward my brilliant new beginning. Having completely closed the chapter on the past, my era had just begun.